Billionaire CEO Fiancée invites his ex-wife to their wedding. She shows up in a Bugatti with a shocking surprise. These are your children, Adrian, Lucas and Mira. They're 6 years old. The cathedral fell silent as Elena's words echoed off ancient stone walls. 500 of Europe's elite held their breath. The bride, resplendent in white silk and diamonds, went pale as she stared at the two small children standing before her fiancé. "That's impossible," Bianca whispered, her perfect composure cracking for the first time. Adrian Vale, tech billionaire worth $30 billion, looked into the eyes of the twin children, his exact gray eyes staring back at him, and felt his carefully constructed world collapse around him. "Why don't you know us?" the little boy asked simply, his innocent question landing like a physical blow. Have you ever wondered what happens when the perfect life you've built reveals itself as nothing but an elaborate illusion? When the past you thought you'd buried returns with consequences you never imagined? If you're fascinated by stories where a single moment changes everything, you're in the right place. I'm Mr. Steven, and today's story will take you on an emotional journey about choices, consequences, and what truly matters in life. If this beginning intrigues you, hit that subscribe button right now and join our storytelling community. Let me take you back to where it all began, 3 hours before the moment that changed everything. Adrian Vale stood at the ornate balcony of the Montreux Palace Hotel, gazing across the glittering surface of Lake Geneva. The reflection of 1,000 fairy lights danced on the water, mirroring the stars above. In 3 hours, he would marry Bianca Moreau in what European social media had already dubbed the wedding of the decade. Tech journals were calling it a merger more significant than any business acquisition in his portfolio. 7 years ago, he'd been just another ambitious entrepreneur with a promising algorithm and relentless drive. Now, at 39, Adrian commanded a technological empire that had revolutionized quantum computing. And Bianca, beautiful, connected, strategic Bianca, would complete his ascension to global prominence. "There you are," Bianca's voice floated from behind him. She glided onto the balcony in her silk robe, careful not to reveal her dress before the ceremony. "Everything is perfect. The governor just arrived, and the ambassador sends his regards." Adrian nodded, offering a practiced smile that never quite reached his eyes. Bianca had orchestrated every detail of their union with the same precision she brought to her luxury brand consultancy. Their wedding wasn't just a celebration, it was a statement. "I've arranged a little surprise," she continued, studying his reaction carefully. "I invited Elena to the ceremony." Adrian froze. "Elena Cross? My ex-wife?" "Former wife, darling. Ex sounds so harsh." Bianca's laugh tinkled like expensive crystal. "It's been, what, 7 years? I thought it showed confidence, maturity. Besides, everyone knows your history. Better to acknowledge it than pretend it never happened." Adrian turned back toward the lake, his shoulders tense. "You should have consulted me first. Would you have agreed?" Bianca stepped closer, running a manicured finger down his arm. "Besides," she declined. Her assistant sent a very polite "no," so you see. Nothing to worry about. What Bianca didn't say, what she never needed to articulate, was that this was her victory lap. The woman who succeeded where Elena had failed. "I need to finish getting ready," Bianca said, pressing a cool kiss to his cheek. "Try not to look so somber, darling. This is the happiest day of our lives." As she departed, Adrian exhaled slowly, his breath forming a small cloud in the crisp Swiss air. The mention of Elena had unlocked memories he'd carefully compartmentalized, her passionate dedication to her research, her infectious laugh, the way she'd challenge his ideas instead of simply agreeing with him. Their divorce had been swift and clean, at least on paper. No children to complicate matters, just the dissolution of 4 years that had begun with genuine love and ended with two people who barely recognized each other across the dinner table. His phone vibrated with a message from his chief of staff: "Security confirms all access points secured. Media in designated areas." Guests arriving on schedule. Adrian nodded to himself. Everything proceeding according to plan. Just as his life always did now. Across Geneva, Elena Cross stared at the embossed invitation, its gold lettering catching the afternoon light in her modest apartment. Her assistant had forwarded it from her old address, along with a handwritten note from Bianca, "The past is the past. Your presence would add closure to our new beginning." At 35, Elena had rebuilt her life meticulously since leaving Switzerland. Her genetic research lab in Copenhagen had just received a substantial grant. Her life was ordered, purposeful, and private, everything her turbulent marriage to Adrian hadn't been. "Mama, is this the castle where the prince lives?" 6-year-old Mira pointed at the invitation, her dark curls falling across her forehead exactly like her father's. "It's just a hotel, sweetheart." Elena's gaze shifted to Lucas, Myra's twin, who was carefully arranging his toy cars by size and color. Adrian's precision in miniature. She had never told Adrian about the pregnancy discovered weeks after their separation. By then, his ruthless focus on his emerging company had already hollowed their marriage beyond repair. Elena had chosen freedom and silence over battling a man whose ambition consumed everything around him. "Is the prince getting married today?" Mira persisted, studying the elegant calligraphy. Elena smiled softly. "Yes, he is. Do you know him?" Lucas looked up from his cars, his analytical mind always making connections. "I used to," Elena answered carefully. "A long time ago." "Before we were born?" Lucas asked. "Yes." Elena ran her fingers through his hair, so like Adrian's in texture. "Before you were born." But now, staring at the invitation, Elena felt the weight of her choice. The twins deserved to know their father. Adrian deserved to know his children existed. Her assistant, Marcus, appeared in the doorway of her home office. "I sent your regrets as instructed. Is there anything else you need before I leave for the weekend?" Elena looked at her children, then back at the invitation. The past 6 years flashed through her mind, the twins' first words, first steps, first days of school. Milestones Adrian had missed because of her decision. "Actually," she said slowly, "I need you to call Johannes." "Your driver?" Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Yes. And book 3 seats on the next flight to Geneva." Marcus blinked in surprise. "But you declined the invitation." "I've changed my mind." Elena's voice was steady, her decision made. "And Marcus? Ask Johannes to arrange for that special car I mentioned last month." "The Bugatti?" "But you said that was an unnecessary extravagance." Elena smiled faintly. "Sometimes an entrance matters." "And book a suite at the Beau Rivage. We'll be staying the night." After Marcus left to make the arrangements, Elena knelt before her children. "We're going on a trip," she announced, her heart racing with the magnitude of what she was about to do. "There's someone very important I'd like you to meet." As the wedding hour approached, Adrian stood in the groom's suite, adjusting his cufflinks while his best man, Richard, poured them each a glass of 30-year-old Macallan. "To the end of freedom," Richard joked, raising his glass. Adrian smiled tightly. "To new beginnings." "Having second thoughts?" Richard studied him closely. They'd been friends since university, before the billions, before Adrian became a household name in tech circles. "Of course not." Adrian's response was automatic. "Everything is proceeding according to plan." "That's the problem, isn't it?" Richard set down his glass. "Your whole life is a strategic plan. When was the last time you did something spontaneous, something that wasn't calculated to advance your position or increase your market share?" Adrian frowned. "I don't have the luxury of impulsive decisions. Too many people depend on my judgment." "Including Bianca?" Richard asked pointedly. Adrian sipped his scotch instead of answering. His relationship with Bianca made perfect sense on paper. She brought social connections and brand expertise, he brought innovation and capital. Together, they were formidable. If something felt missing, some indefinable spark that had been present with Elena, well, that was simply the difference between youth and maturity. Between emotional decisions and strategic ones. A knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. His head of security entered, looking uncharacteristically concerned. "Sir, there's a situation at the entrance. A guest who wasn't on the approved list is insisting on seeing you." Adrian sighed. "The press is getting more aggressive by the year. Have them escorted." "It's Elena Cross, sir. Your former wife." Adrian froze, his glass halfway to his lips. "Elena is here." "I thought she declined." "Yes, sir. And she's not alone." Richard whistled low. Plot twist. Adrian set down his glass with a controlled movement. "I should see what she wants before the ceremony begins." "Sir," the security chief hesitated, "she has children with her." Adrian's brow furrowed. "Children? Whose children?" The security chief looked uncomfortable. "She claims they're yours, sir." The wedding ceremony was moments from beginning when the distinctive rumble of a Bugatti Chiron echoed through the courtyard. Guests turned to see the midnight blue supercar glide to a stop at the red carpet entrance. Bianca, peering through the bridal suite window, felt a flutter of satisfaction. Elena had accepted her invitation, another player following her script. This was perfect. Adrian's plain, academic ex-wife witnessing Bianca in all her glory, cementing her triumph. But the script shattered when Elena emerged from the car, resplendent in a simple blue gown that highlighted her quiet confidence. And then, impossibly, two small children stepped out behind her, holding her hands. The whispers began immediately, rippling through the assembled dignitaries and tech elites. Bianca's stylist gasped beside her. "Those children look exactly like Adrian." Bianca's satisfaction curdled into dread. She grabbed her phone and furiously texted her wedding planner, "Stop them from entering. Now." But it was too late. Elena and the children were already being escorted inside, causing a stir that grew with each step they took. In the cathedral's antechamber, Adrian waited, his face a mask of control despite the turmoil within. When the side door opened and Elena walked in with two children, a boy and girl with serious faces and familiar eyes. Something ancient and primal shifted in his chest. Elena. Her name felt strange on his lips after so many years. "Hello, Adrian." She looked different, more confident, her beauty matured rather than faded. "It's been a long time. What is this?" He gestured toward the children, who were studying him with undisguised curiosity. "This is Lucas," Elena said, placing her hand on the boy's shoulder. "And this is Mira. They're 6 years old, Adrian." The implication hung in the air between them. "That's not possible," he said automatically, even as his eyes catalogued the evidence, Lucas's serious expression, the exact shade of his own gray eyes, Myra's determined chin and the way she stood with her weight shifted slightly to one side, just as he always did. "It is possible," Elena replied calmly. "I found out I was pregnant 3 weeks after signing our divorce papers. By then, you'd made it very clear that your company was your priority. I chose not to complicate your life." Adrian stared at the children, his children, feeling as though the floor beneath him had disappeared. "You kept this from me for 6 years." His voice was barely audible. "You kept yourself from us," Elena corrected gently. "I merely accepted the choice you had already made." Before Adrian could respond, the door burst open and Bianca swept in, her wedding gown rustling angrily around her. "What is the meaning of this?" she demanded, eyes flashing. "The ceremony was supposed to begin 5 minutes ago." "Bianca," Adrian said, his voice strangely distant. "I need a moment here." "No, what you need is to get to the altar." Bianca's voice was low, controlled, but with an edge of panic. 500 guests are waiting. The Prime Minister is waiting. Is this the princess? Mira asked suddenly, looking up at Bianca with innocent curiosity. Bianca's eyes widened. Who is this child? Why are they even here? They're my children, Adrian said slowly, the truth of the statement settling into him as he spoke it. Apparently. That's absurd, Bianca hissed, but her voice faltered as she truly looked at the twins for the first time, the boy with Adrian's distinctive gray eyes, the girl with his determined chin and the same slight tilt of the head. Adrian knelt slowly, bringing himself to the twins' eye level. Hello, he said, his voice surprisingly steady. You look like me, Lucas observed with scientific detachment. Your company makes the computers at my school, Mira added. Why don't you know us? Lucas asked, the innocent question landing like a physical blow. Adrian looked up at Elena, questions flooding his eyes. I found out after I left, she explained quietly. You were building your empire. I was, tired of competing with it. Bianca's carefully controlled facade crumbled. This is absurd. This wedding has been planned for months. The press is here. But Adrian wasn't listening. He was counting the similarities, Lucas's analytical gaze, Myra's thoughtful frown. He saw himself in their features, but something better, something untainted by the compromises he'd made. I need time, he said finally, rising to his feet. I need to understand this. Bianca grabbed his arm. Adrian, hundreds of guests are waiting. The contracts are not more important than this, he finished, gently removing her hand. If you're enjoying this story of unexpected revelations and difficult choices, hit that like button and subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories right now. We bring you compelling narratives about life, love, and the moments that define us. Don't miss another powerful story. Subscribe today and join our growing community of story lovers. Now, let's see how Adrian handles this life-changing moment. Bianca's eyes narrowed. You can't seriously be considering canceling our wedding over some claim she's making. We don't even know if they're actually yours. Adrian studied the children again. Lucas had begun examining a decorative clock on the mantel, his head tilted at the exact angle Adrian used when analyzing a new piece of technology. Mira was quietly counting the flowers in a nearby arrangement, her fingers moving in the same precise pattern he used when running calculations. I know, he said simply. We can deal with this after the ceremony, Bianca insisted, lowering her voice. If paternity needs to be established, we'll handle it discreetly. But right now, we have obligations. The obligation I seem to have missed, Adrian replied, his voice gaining strength, is to these children. Elena stepped forward. I didn't come here to disrupt your wedding, Adrian. I came because they deserve to know who their father is, and you deserve to know they exist. What you do with that information is your choice. Adrian ran a hand through his perfectly styled hair, disrupting the careful work of his groomer. Richard, he called to his best man who had been watching silently from the doorway. Please inform the guests there will be a delay. Adrian. Bianca's composure shattered completely. You cannot be serious. I've never been more serious. He turned to Elena. Is there somewhere we can talk? The three of you and me? Elena nodded. The hotel arranged a private lounge for us when we arrived. Fine, Bianca interjected, smoothing her gown. I'll come too. No, Adrian said firmly. This needs to be between Elena and me. And he glanced at the children, my children. Bianca flinched as if slapped. So you believe her? Just like that? Look at them, Bianca, Adrian said quietly. Really look. For a moment, genuine pain flashed across Bianca's perfect features. Then her social training reasserted itself, her face becoming an elegant mask once more. Very well. You have 30 minutes. After that, we either proceed with the ceremony, or I will personally inform our guests that the wedding has been called off." She swept from the room, her wedding dress trailing behind her like a banner of war. The private lounge overlooking Lake Geneva had been prepared for VIP wedding guests, with champagne on ice and delicate canapés arranged on silver trays. Now it served as the setting for a very different kind of meeting. Adrian sat across from Elena, the twins between them, like a surreal family portrait. "Would you like something to eat?" he asked the children, gesturing to the elaborate spread. Lucas eyed the food cautiously. "Is there chocolate?" Adrian found himself smiling despite the situation. "I believe there's a dessert tray. Shall we investigate?" Minutes later, the tension had eased slightly as Lucas and Mira enjoyed elaborate ice cream creations, their initial wariness giving way to childish delight at the unexpected treat. "They have your sweet tooth," Elena observed. "And your freckles," Adrian replied, noticing the faint constellation across Myra's nose. "Why now?" he asked as they watched the children. "After 6 years?" "I didn't plan this," she admitted. "When I received Bianca's invitation, I realized I'd been hiding." "They deserve to know you. And you deserve to know them." "And Bianca wanted to parade her triumph," Elena said simply. "She didn't expect me to bring evidence of a life you shared before her." Adrian watched as Lucas methodically ate his ice cream, section by section, just as he himself had done as a child. "I would have helped. Supported you both. The man you were then wouldn't have," Elena said gently. "You would have sent money, hired nannies, visited on holidays." That wasn't enough. Adrian couldn't argue. 7 years ago, he'd been obsessed with proving himself. Children would have been an inconvenience to be managed. "Are they healthy? Happy?" he asked, a lump forming in his throat. "Very. Lucas is already reading at a 4th grade level. He's fascinated by engineering, he takes apart every electronic device he can get his hands on." Elena smiled fondly. "Mira is our artist. She sees patterns everywhere, connections between things the rest of us miss." Like her mother, Adrian said softly, remembering how Elena's research had always been characterized by her ability to see relationships others overlooked. "Mama says I get my counting from you," Mira piped up, clearly listening despite appearing absorbed in her dessert. "She says you always count your steps." Adrian felt a jolt of recognition. It was a habit he'd had since childhood, counting steps, sealing tiles, books on shelves. A private quirk he thought no one had noticed. "I do," he acknowledged, meeting Myra's eyes, his eyes. "It helps me keep track of things." "Me too," she nodded seriously. "Today I counted 47 flowers in the big vase outside." Lucas looked up from his methodical destruction of his ice cream sundae. "Are you really our father? Biologically speaking?" The clinical precision of the question, so characteristic of Adrian's own approach to problems, nearly made him laugh. "Yes," he answered, finding certainty in the moment. "I believe I am." "But you didn't know about us?" Lucas pressed. "No, I didn't." Adrian looked at Elena. "Your mother and I, separated before she knew she was expecting you. And would you have stayed if you knew?" Lucas's penetrating gaze, so like looking in a mirror, demanded truth. Adrian hesitated, then decided these children deserved honesty. "I don't know. I was a different person then. Very focused on my work." "Your computers," Mira nodded. "Mrs. Peterson says they're revolutionary." Adrian smiled at her careful pronunciation. "That's very kind of Mrs. Peterson. Is she your teacher?" "In Copenhagen," Lucas confirmed. "We speak Danish at school and English at home." "Your Danish is excellent," Elena told them. "Perhaps you could teach your father some phrases." The casual use of "your father" sent another shock wave through Adrian. Father. He was a father. Had been for 6 years without knowing. I'd like that, he said quietly. A knock at the door interrupted the moment. Richard entered, his expression apologetic. I'm sorry, Adrian, but Bianca says your time is up. She's quite insistent. Adrian checked his watch. The 30 minutes had indeed elapsed, though it felt like mere seconds. Tell her I'll be there shortly, he said. When Richard had gone, Adrian turned back to Elena and the twins. I need to speak with Bianca. Would you stay? In Geneva, I mean. Just for a day or two. Elena nodded. We have a suite at the Beau Rivage. We'll be here until Monday. Adrian stood, suddenly reluctant to leave. Lucas, Mira, it's an honor to meet you both. Lucas extended his hand formally, and Adrian shook it, swallowing hard at the small fingers in his palm. Mira approached more directly, looking up at him with curious eyes. Will we see you again? Yes, Adrian promised without hesitation. Very soon. Bianca was pacing in the bridal suite, her wedding gown rustling with each agitated step. When Adrian entered, she stopped, studying his face. Well, she demanded. Have you satisfied your curiosity? Can we proceed now? Adrian closed the door behind him. They're mine, Bianca. There's no doubt. So she says, Bianca countered. There are tests for these things, Adrian. Legal processes. This could be an elaborate extortion attempt. It's not. Adrian's voice was calm, certain. One look at them is all it takes. Besides, Elena doesn't need money. Her research is well funded, and she's never asked me for anything. Except to ruin our wedding day, Bianca snapped. That was your doing, Adrian reminded her. You invited her. Bianca flinched. To show her what she'd lost. Not to give her a platform for this. This ambush. It's not an ambush. It's the truth. Adrian moved to the window, looking out at the lake. I have children, Bianca. 6-year-old twins I knew nothing about. And what does that change, exactly? Bianca's voice took on the reasonable tone she used in difficult negotiations. You can acknowledge them, provide financial support, see them occasionally. None of that precludes our marriage. Adrian turned to face her. Everything has changed. I'm not the man you agreed to marry 3 hours ago. I'm a father. Don't be dramatic, Bianca scoffed. Men discover children from previous relationships all the time. It's hardly revolutionary. It is to me. Adrian studied her beautiful face, the face that would grace magazine covers, enhance his corporate image, open doors to the upper echelons of European society. I need time to process this. To get to know them. Time. Bianca's eyes widened. 500 people are waiting in that cathedral. The catering alone cost more than most people's homes. The press. I know. Adrian's voice was gentle but firm. And I'm sorry. But I can't stand at that altar right now and make promises about our future when my past has just completely transformed. Bianca's face hardened. If you walk away from this ceremony, you walk away from me. Permanently. I will not be humiliated like this, Adrian. Adrian looked at her for a long moment. In another timeline, one where Elena hadn't appeared with those two small versions of himself, he would have proceeded with the ceremony. He would have signed the merger documents disguised as marriage vows. He would have continued building his empire with Bianca as the perfect corporate partner. But something had shifted inside him the moment he looked into Lucas and Myra's eyes. Some dormant part of himself had awakened. A part that recognized there were things more valuable than strategic alliances and market share. I'm sorry, Bianca, he said finally. I can't marry you today. Bianca went very still, her face a mask of controlled fury. I see. She removed her engagement ring, a flawless 10-carat diamond, and placed it on the dressing table with a decisive click. My team will contact yours regarding the dissolution of our prenuptial agreements and joint ventures. Adrian nodded, accepting the businesslike end to their relationship. It was, he realized, fitting for what had always been more merger than marriage. I'll make the announcement to the guests, he offered. Don't bother, Bianca replied coldly. I'm perfectly capable of managing the situation. Unlike you, apparently. As she swept past him, chin high and shoulders back, Adrian felt a strange mixture of regret and relief. He was losing a partner who made perfect sense on paper, but he was gaining, what exactly? A chance to know his children. A reconnection with his own humanity. A fork in the road he hadn't known existed until today. I hope you're enjoying this emotional journey through Adrian's unexpected revelation. If you appreciate stories about life-changing moments and difficult choices, take a second right now to hit that subscribe button. Mr. Stephen's Stories brings you compelling narratives that make you think, feel, and reflect on what truly matters in life. Don't miss our next powerful story. Subscribe now and join our community of story lovers. Now, let's return to Adrian as he begins to navigate his new reality. News of the cancelled wedding spread through the Montreux Palace like wildfire. Guests whispered behind crystal champagne flutes, phones discreetly capturing the drama unfolding in real time. Bianca had departed in a private helicopter, her dignity intact, her fury contained behind a perfect social smile. The official statement cited unforeseen circumstances and mutual decision, but the truth rippled through the assembled crowd. Adrian Vale had discovered he was a father. Adrian, meanwhile, had retreated to his suite to change out of his wedding attire. As he removed his cufflinks, platinum with embedded blue diamonds, Bianca's wedding gift to him. His phone buzzed incessantly with messages from board members, investors, and publicists, all demanding explanations. He ignored them all. Instead, he texted Elena, "Would you and the children join me for dinner? There's a private dining room at La Terrasse." Her reply came quickly, "The children would like that." 7 p.m. As he changed into more casual clothes, Adrian found his hands were shaking. He, who had faced down hostile takeovers and market crashes with ice in his veins, was nervous about having dinner with two 6-year-olds. His CFO called for the 5th time, and Adrian finally answered. "The board is convening an emergency meeting," James said without preamble. "The stock has already dropped 3 points on the news of the cancelled wedding. Bianca's father is threatening to pull his investment in the European expansion." "Let him," Adrian replied, surprising himself with his indifference. "Adrian, this is serious. The merger with Moreau Luxury was projected to increase our market share by. I know the numbers, James. We'll survive without the merger. And the children?" James's voice lowered. "Are they really yours?" Adrian paused before the mirror, studying his own reflection, the gray eyes Lucas had inherited, the determined chin Mira shared. "Yes," he said simply. "They're mine." "Do you need our legal team to handle the paternity verification? Establish support parameters. Draft a visitation schedule." The clinical coldness of the questions jarred Adrian. Is that how he would have approached this situation 7 years ago? Treating his own children as a legal matter to be managed? "No," he said firmly. "This isn't a corporate issue. It's personal." "With all due respect, sir," James pressed, "everything you do affects the company. Your personal life is." "My own," Adrian interrupted. "For the first time in a very long time. I'll call you tomorrow, James." He ended the call before his CFO could protest further, then powered off his phone entirely. Whatever crisis the corporate world believed was happening could wait. He had more important matters to attend to. La Terrasse's private dining room offered a panoramic view of Lake Geneva and the Alps beyond. Adrian arrived early, arranging for a child-friendly menu alongside the gourmet offerings and ensuring the staff understood the importance of privacy. When Elena arrived with the twins, both children had been changed into nicer clothes, Lucas in a small button-down shirt and Mira in a blue dress that matched her mother's eyes. "Thank you for coming," Adrian said, suddenly formal in his nervousness. "Mama said we're having a special dinner," Mira announced, already examining the elaborate table setting with interest. "Very special," Adrian agreed, helping her into her chair. "I thought we could get to know each other a little better." Lucas climbed into his own chair, studying Adrian with that same analytical gaze. "Did you cancel your wedding because of us?" Elena looked mortified. "Lucas. That's not an appropriate question." But Adrian appreciated the directness. "Yes," he answered honestly. "I needed time to understand what it means to be your father. That seemed more important than a wedding ceremony." "The princess didn't look happy," Mira observed. "She wasn't," Adrian acknowledged. "And she's not actually a princess, just someone who was very important to me. But not as important as us." Lucas pressed, his expression serious. Adrian met his son's gaze directly. "As it turns out, no." The simple answer seemed to satisfy Lucas, who turned his attention to the bread basket. The dinner progressed more smoothly than Adrian could have imagined. The twins, despite their initial caution, were curious about him. Their questions came in rapid succession. "How do computers think?" Lucas. "Do you have any pets?" Mira. "Why is your company called Quantum Vertex?" Lucas. "Can you do a cartwheel?" Mira. Adrian answered each question as seriously as if it had been posed by his board of directors. No, he didn't have pets, but he'd had a dog named Einstein as a boy. Computers don't really think, they process information based on instructions. Quantum vertex referred to the intersection of quantum mechanics and computer processing. And no, he couldn't do a cartwheel, but perhaps Mira could teach him. Elena mostly observed, occasionally guiding the conversation but largely allowing the natural connection between father and children to develop. Adrian caught her watching him with an unreadable expression several times. During dessert, an elaborate chocolate confection that had both twins wide-eyed with delight, Lucas fixed Adrian with another of his penetrating stares. "Are you going to come live with us in Copenhagen?" he asked. Adrian nearly choked on his espresso. That's not. I mean. He looked to Elena for help. "Your father lives here in Switzerland," she explained gently. "His company is here, and his home." "But he's our father," Mira pointed out logically. "Fathers are supposed to live with their children. Like Sophia's dad." "Sometimes parents live in different places," Elena said carefully. "But they can still both be part of their children's lives." "How?" Lucas demanded, always needing concrete answers. Adrian leaned forward. "I could visit you in Copenhagen. And perhaps you could visit me here sometimes, if your mother agrees." "For how long?" Mira wanted to know. "We'll figure that out together," Adrian said, glancing at Elena. "This is new for all of us. We'll need to be patient while we work out the details." After dinner, they walked along the lake promenade, the twins running ahead to examine a gathering of swans while Adrian and Elena followed at a more measured pace. "They're extraordinary," Adrian said quietly. "You've done an amazing job with them." "They make it easy," Elena replied. "They're naturally curious, kind. Much of that comes from you, I think." Adrian shook his head. "The man you knew wasn't particularly kind." "You were," she countered. "Before the company consumed you." They walked in silence for a moment, watching as Lucas attempted to count the swans while Mira tried to sketch them with a finger in the air. "I'm sorry," Adrian said finally. "For not being the man you needed me to be. For making you feel that you couldn't tell me about the pregnancy." Elena's expression softened. "We were very young. Both ambitious, both determined to change the world in our own ways. Perhaps it simply wasn't our time. And now? Adrian couldn't help asking. Now we focus on what's best for Lucas and Mira, she said firmly. That's what matters. Adrian nodded, accepting the gentle redirection. Will you allow me to be part of their lives? Really part of it, not just financial support or occasional visits. That was always my intention in coming here, Elena said. They deserve to know their father. And despite everything, I always believed you deserved to know them. The twins had given up on the Swans and were now racing each other back toward their parents. Mira reached Adrian first, surprising him by slipping her small hand into his as naturally as if she'd been doing it her whole life. Can we get ice cream again tomorrow? She asked, looking up at him with hopeful eyes, his eyes. Adrian felt something in his chest expand painfully. Yes, he promised, his voice rough with emotion. Anything you want. The next morning brought the consequences of Adrian's decision into sharp focus. The business press was running wild with speculation about the cancelled wedding. Quantum Vertex's stock had indeed dropped, and Bianca's father had publicly announced the termination of several joint ventures. Adrian's PR team had assembled in his hotel suite, presenting carefully crafted statements designed to minimize damage. As they debated the merits of various approaches, Adrian stood at the window, watching boats glide across the lake. Sir. His head of communications prompted. We need to decide on our official position. The narrative is getting away from us. Adrian turned from the window. What is the current narrative? The communications director consulted his tablet. Several versions circulating. That Ms. Cross appeared with proof of financial impropriety from your past. That she threatened to reveal damaging information about Quantum Vertex's early funding. That the children are a fabrication designed to extract money. And the truth? Adrian asked. That I have 2 children I never knew about. That I chose to postpone my wedding to understand what that means. With respect, sir, that makes you look indecisive. Markets respond negatively to uncertainty. Adrian smiled slightly. I imagine they do. Draft a simple statement. Mr. Vale has recently learned he is the father of twin children from his previous marriage. He has chosen to take time to focus on his new family responsibilities. Quantum Vertex's operations and strategic direction remain unchanged. The PR team exchanged glances. That's unusually direct, sir, the communications director said carefully. Yes, Adrian agreed. It is. He checked his watch. Now if you'll excuse me, I have a breakfast appointment. He left the bewildered team behind, taking the elevator to the lobby where Elena and the twins were waiting. They had plans to visit the Geneva Botanical Gardens, followed by lunch at a child-friendly restaurant Lucas had researched online last night. As Adrian approached, both children spotted him simultaneously. Mira waved enthusiastically while Lucas offered a more reserved but equally genuine smile. Elena watched their reactions with quiet satisfaction. For the first time in years, perhaps for the first time ever, Adrian felt no need to check his phone for messages or market updates. The only updates that mattered were the excited stories Mira was already telling him about a dream involving talking swans, and Lucas's detailed questions about the carnivorous plants they might see at the gardens. Shall we? He asked, offering a hand to each child. As they left the hotel, a photographer captured the moment. Adrian Vale, tech billionaire, walking hand in hand with his newly discovered children. By evening, the image would replace all stories about the cancelled wedding, spawning a new narrative about second chances and priorities. But Adrian didn't know that yet. He was too busy learning how to be a father, one step at a time. If you're finding value in this story about discovering what truly matters in life, please take a moment to subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories. Your support helps us continue bringing you these powerful narratives about choices, consequences, and redemption. Like and share if this resonates with you, and let us know in the comments if you've ever experienced a moment that completely changed your life's direction. Now, let's continue with Adrian's journey. Over the next week, Adrian's life underwent a transformation more significant than any corporate restructuring he'd ever overseen. He extended his stay in Geneva, canceling meetings and conference calls to spend time with Lucas and Mira. Each day brought new discoveries. Lucas's passion for building elaborate structures with whatever materials were at hand, Mira's ability to find music in everyday sounds, composing little melodies that she hummed while drawing. Elena observed the developing bond with cautious optimism. She had expected resistance, perhaps even legal challenges, when she made the decision to reveal the twins' existence. Instead, Adrian had embraced fatherhood with a hunger that suggested he'd been starving without knowing it. "He's different than I remember," she confided to her sister during a late-night call. "More present. More human." "People change," her sister replied. "Or perhaps he's just returning to who he was before success rewrote his priorities." By the end of the week, they faced the inevitable conversation about what came next. Adrian had rearranged his entire schedule to remain in Switzerland, but Elena and the children needed to return to Copenhagen. Lucas had a science exhibition he'd been preparing for, and Mira had piano lessons she was reluctant to miss. "I could come with you," Adrian suggested over dinner at Elena's hotel suite. "I can work remotely for a while." Elena shook her head gently. "That's not a sustainable solution, Adrian. You have a company to run. And the children need stability, not a whirlwind introduction to a new father who then disappears back into his work." Adrian flinched at the assessment, but couldn't deny its truth. "Then what do you suggest?" "We establish a routine," Elena said practically. "Regular video calls. Weekend visits when possible. School holidays spent together." "That sounds so scheduled," Adrian objected. "Fatherhood by appointment." Elena's expression softened. "It's a starting point, not the destination. We build from here, one step at a time." Later that evening, after the children had been tucked into bed, Adrian and Elena sat on the suite's balcony, the lights of Geneva twinkling below them. "I've been thinking about relocating Quantum Vertex's European headquarters," Adrian said suddenly. "Copenhagen has an excellent tech infrastructure." Elena studied him in the dim light. "Adrian." "Not immediately," he clarified. "But within the year. It would make practical sense for the business and allow me to be closer to Lucas and Mira." "You would uproot your entire operation for this?" "For them," Adrian corrected. "Yes." Elena was quiet for a long moment. "They've gotten attached to you very quickly. Especially Mira." "And I to them," Adrian admitted. "I never knew. I never understood what I was missing." "And what about the next obsession?" Elena asked gently. "The next project or merger or product launch that consumes all your attention?" "Children aren't like board members, Adrian. You can't schedule them around quarterly reports." The challenge stung, but Adrian recognized its legitimacy. "I'm not the same man who put work before everything else," he said quietly. "Before everyone else." "I want to believe that," Elena replied. "For their sakes." Adrian leaned forward, his expression earnest. "Give me the chance to prove it." The next morning, they took the children to the airport, a strange family grouping that drew curious glances from passers-by. Adrian knelt to say goodbye, finding himself unprepared for the wave of emotion that accompanied the moment. "I'll see you next weekend," he promised, having already arranged for his private jet to bring him to Copenhagen on Friday afternoon. "And we'll video call every evening before bedtime." Lucas nodded seriously, accepting the plan with his usual pragmatism. Mira, however, threw her arms around Adrian's neck in a fierce hug that nearly unbalanced him. "I counted our steps together," she whispered in his ear. 1,342 since breakfast." Adrian swallowed hard, returning the hug with equal intensity. Keep counting for me, he whispered back. I'll catch up on Friday. As he watched them walk through the security checkpoint, Elena glancing back once with an unreadable expression, Adrian felt a profound sense of loss mixed with determination. He had missed 6 years of their lives. He wouldn't miss another day if he could help it. True to his word, Adrian appeared in Copenhagen the following Friday, laden with carefully selected gifts, engineering kits for Lucas, art supplies for Mira. His weekend visit set the pattern for those that followed. Museum trips, park explorations, quiet evenings helping with homework or reading bedtime stories. Elena observed the developing relationship with growing confidence. Adrian proved surprisingly adept at fatherhood, approaching it with the same intensity he brought to business but tempered with a gentleness she'd forgotten he possessed. You're good with them, she acknowledged one evening, after Adrian had spent an hour helping Lucas construct a miniature robot from spare parts. They make it easy, Adrian echoed her earlier words. They're extraordinary children. Yes, they are, Elena agreed softly. Something in her tone made Adrian look up sharply. You're worried. Not worried, exactly. Elena chose her words carefully. Just, aware that they're becoming very attached. If this is just a novelty for you. It's not, Adrian interrupted firmly. You say that now, Elena continued. But you've always been driven by the next challenge, the next summit to conquer. Once the newness wears off. Elena. Adrian's voice was gentle but serious. I've restructured my entire company to make this work. I've delegated operational control to my executive team. I've converted half my estate into what will essentially be the world's most advanced playroom. This isn't a phase or a novelty. This is the rest of my life. Elena studied his face, looking for any trace of the ambitious, distracted man she'd once been married to. Instead, she found something new. A centered certainty, a man who had found his true north. Okay, she said simply. Okay. Adrian echoed, surprised by her capitulation. I believe you. She smiled slightly. For now. The arrangement continued for 3 months. Adrian commuted to Copenhagen every weekend, never missing a single visit despite business crises and board member complaints. He participated in parent-teacher conferences via video call, learned basic Danish phrases to help with homework, and memorized the names of every friend, teacher, and significant adult in the twins' lives. During weekdays, he maintained his promise of nightly video calls, reading bedtime stories through the screen and listening with genuine interest to the children's accounts of their days. One evening in late autumn, Adrian arrived in Copenhagen to find Elena unusually pensive. What's wrong? He asked after the children had gone to bed. Lucas's teacher suggested he apply to a special science program, she explained. It's an incredible opportunity for him. That's wonderful, Adrian said, confused by her concern. His engineering skills are extraordinary. He designed that water filtration system entirely on his own. The program is in Zurich, Elena clarified. It would mean relocating, at least during the school year. Adrian went very still. To Switzerland. Yes. And you're considering it? Elena nodded slowly. It would be a significant adjustment. Mira would need a new school as well. I'd have to arrange a research sabbatical or find a position at the university there. But for Lucas, this could be transformative. Adrian carefully controlled his expression, not wanting to appear too eager. And logistically? Housing, arrangements. That's the main obstacle, Elena admitted. Zurich is expensive, and while my research grant is generous, establishing an entirely new household there would be challenging. I could help, Adrian offered carefully. Not just financially. I have connections at the university. And my estate outside the city has more than enough space. He stopped at Elena's raised eyebrow. For a separate guest house, he clarified. Or I could find you a suitable place in the city. Whatever would make you most comfortable. Elena studied him thoughtfully. You've changed, she said finally. Yes, Adrian agreed simply. The old Adrian would have immediately suggested taking Lucas himself, or hiring staff to care for him while I remained in Copenhagen with Mira. Adrian shook his head. I would never separate them. Or them from you. No, Elena said softly. You wouldn't. Not anymore. They sat in silence for a moment, the possibility of a very different future expanding between them. I'll need to visit the school, Elena said finally. See the program firsthand. Discuss options with both children. Of course, Adrian agreed, tamping down his surging hope. Whatever you decide, I'll support. 2 weeks later, after much discussion, school visits, and careful consideration of the children's feelings, the decision was made. Elena would accept a visiting researcher position at the University of Zurich, Lucas would enroll in the science program, and Mira would attend an arts-focused international school nearby. They would move at the end of the semester, just before Christmas. Not to the estate, Elena clarified when Adrian offered it again. The children need to understand we're co-parenting, not reuniting. Adrian accepted this boundary without argument, instead helping to find and furnish a comfortable home in the city, close enough to his estate for convenient visits but maintaining the separation Elena felt was important. The day they arrived in Zurich, Adrian met them at the airport with 2 carefully chosen gifts, a telescope for Lucas to explore the clearer Swiss night skies, and a set of alpine wildflower seeds for Mira to plant in the spring. As he helped carry their luggage to the waiting car, Lucas fell into step beside him. Mother says we'll see you more often now, he said, his analytical mind always focused on concrete details. Much more often, Adrian confirmed. Would 3 dinners a week be acceptable? And perhaps Saturdays for special outings? Lucas considered this proposal with appropriate seriousness. That seems like an appropriate frequency to facilitate relationship development. Adrian hid a smile at the clinical assessment. I agree completely. Ahead of them, Mira skipped alongside Elena, already chattering about decorating her new room. She paused, turning back to make sure Adrian was following. We're counting new steps now, she called to him. In our new home. Yes, Adrian agreed, his heart full. New steps for all of us. Thank you for staying with us through this powerful story. If you're enjoying this journey of redemption and second chances, please subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories now. Your support means everything to us and helps us continue creating meaningful content. Like and share if this story has touched you, and don't miss our next upload. Now, let's see how this family's story concludes. 6 months after the move to Zurich, the rhythms of their unusual family had settled into something approaching normalcy. Adrian maintained his promised 3 dinners per week, typically cooking alongside the twins in Elena's kitchen, teaching them family recipes his grandmother had passed down to him. Lucas thrived in his special science program, his natural engineering talents blossoming under expert guidance. Mira discovered a passion for the cello, her musical abilities developing rapidly with proper instruction. Elena's research gained new momentum through her university position, leading to a breakthrough in genetic markers that attracted international attention. And Adrian, to the surprise of his board and shareholders, became a more effective CEO by working fewer hours, his decisions sharper, his vision clearer when not clouded by exhaustion and isolation. You seem happy, Richard observed during a rare visit to Quantum Vertex headquarters. The company Adrian had once lived and breathed now saw him in person only 3 days a week, with the remaining work handled remotely. I am, Adrian acknowledged, showing his friend the latest school project Lucas had constructed, a working model of a quantum processor using household materials. And Elena? Richard asked carefully. Are you too? Co-parenting, Adrian said firmly. Successfully. Richard raised an eyebrow. Just co-parenting? Adrian smiled slightly but didn't elaborate. The truth was more complicated than he could easily explain. His relationship with Elena had evolved into something neither of them had anticipated, not quite the marriage they'd once had, but far more than the distant courtesy of divorced parents. They consulted each other on decisions, supported each other's work, and occasionally, when the children were asleep, shared a glass of wine and conversations that extended far beyond parenting matters. The boundaries Elena had carefully established were gradually softening, though neither of them had put words to the shift. That evening, Adrian arrived at Elena's home with the ingredients for paella, a dish the children had requested after learning about Spanish cuisine at school. As he chopped vegetables alongside Mira, who insisted on counting each slice, Lucas peppered him with questions about computational algorithms. "Your next project should be to design your own algorithm," Adrian suggested. "Start with a problem you want to solve, then work backwards to create the steps." Lucas's eyes lit up at the challenge. "I want to design a predictive model for plant growth," he declared. "For Myra's garden." Mira looked up from her careful vegetable counting. "Could you really do that?" "With your father's help, probably," Elena said, entering the kitchen with a stack of academic journals. He designed a weather prediction algorithm that's still considered revolutionary. "You did?" Lucas asked, clearly impressed. "A long time ago," Adrian confirmed. "Before Quantum Vertex was even a company. Your mother was the first person to recognize its potential." "That's because Mama's smart," Mira stated confidently. "Brilliant, actually," Adrian corrected with a smile toward Elena. She saw patterns no one else could see. Elena's cheeks colored slightly at the praise. "The paella is about to burn," she pointed out, changing the subject. After dinner and homework supervision, Adrian helped tuck the children into bed, a privilege he still found astonishing after missing so many bedtimes. Lucas requested a physics book rather than a story, while Mira asked Adrian to count ceiling tiles with her until she fell asleep. Downstairs, he found Elena on the terrace, gazing at the stars visible above the city lights. "They're adjusting well," she observed as he joined her. "Better than I expected." "Children are remarkably adaptable," Adrian agreed. "Especially when they feel secure." They stood in comfortable silence for a moment, the night air crisp with early spring. "Bianca is engaged again," Elena said suddenly. "I saw it in the news." Adrian nodded. "To a French diplomat. They seem well matched." "Does that bother you?" Elena asked, studying his profile. "No," Adrian replied honestly. "I hope she finds happiness. She deserved better than what I offered her." "Which was?" "A business arrangement disguised as a marriage," Adrian admitted. "Security, status, strategic advantage. Everything except genuine connection." Elena turned to face him fully. "And what would you offer now? If you were to consider a relationship again?" The question hung between them, weighted with possibility. "Presence," Adrian answered after a thoughtful pause. "Commitment to what matters, not just what advances a career or builds a legacy. The understanding that success without connection is meaningless." "Those are good answers," Elena said softly. "I had a good teacher." Adrian's gaze was steady, unguarded. "Several, actually. Lucas taught me that curiosity matters more than certainty. Mira showed me there's magic in counting ordinary things. And you?" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "You gave me the chance to become the man I should have been from the beginning." Elena's expression softened. "You always had it in you, Adrian. You just got lost for a while." "Very lost," he agreed. "But not anymore." The moment stretched between them, neither advancing nor retreating from the unspoken possibility that had been growing for months. Finally, Elena spoke. "The children will be on a school trip this weekend." "Overnight?" Adrian nodded, waiting. "I thought perhaps we could have dinner. Just the two of us." "I'd like that," Adrian said simply. Inside the house, the clock chimed 10, Adrian's signal to leave, a boundary that had been established months ago. As he gathered his coat, Elena walked him to the door. "Lucas asked me something interesting today," she said. "He wanted to know why, if you're our father and I'm their mother, you live in a different house." Adrian raised an eyebrow. "What did you tell him?" "That families come in many configurations. That what matters is the love and commitment, not the living arrangements." "A good answer," Adrian approved. He then proceeded to explain why, logically speaking, it would be more efficient if we consolidated households. Elena's lips twitched with amusement. Complete with a PowerPoint presentation outlining the benefits. Adrian laughed. "He's persistent. And thorough." "He's you," Elena replied. "Just with better priorities from the start." As Adrian drove home that night, he reflected on the extraordinary journey of the past year. From the moment Elena had walked into his wedding with 2 children he never knew existed, every certainty he'd built his life around had been upended. His company, once the center of his existence, was now simply the work he did, not who he was. His wealth, once the measure of his success, now mattered only in how it could enrich his children's experiences and opportunities. And Elena, the woman he had once been too blind to truly see, now represented a second chance he had never expected to deserve. 1 year to the day after the wedding that never happened, Adrian found himself back at the Montreux Palace Hotel. Not for a business conference or corporate retreat, but for a small, private ceremony attended only by the twins, Elena's sister, and Richard. As Mira scattered wildflowers from her garden along the terrace where Adrian had once contemplated marrying for strategic advantage, Lucas solemnly presented the rings he had carried with mathematical precision. Adrian looked at Elena, brilliant, compassionate Elena who had given him the gift of his children and the chance to become the father and man he was meant to be. "Second chances are rare," he said quietly, taking her hands in his. "I won't waste this one." 1,342 steps, Elena replied with a smile. Adrian looked puzzled. "That's how many steps it took us to get here today," she explained. "Myra's been counting for both of us." As they sealed their vows with a kiss, cheered on by their children, Adrian Vale, once defined solely by his billions and his business acumen, found himself rich in the only currency that truly mattered, love, connection, and the chance to count every step of the journey ahead, together. Thank you for experiencing this powerful story with us. If it touched your heart or made you reflect on what truly matters in life, please subscribe to Mr. Stephen's Stories now. Your support helps us continue bringing meaningful narratives to the world. Don't forget to like, share with someone who might need this message, and comment with your thoughts. We'll be back soon with another moving story that reminds us all about the power of truth, forgiveness, and second chances.